I sacrificed everything for my mother, only to be cut out of her will. Here's what happened. Best Reddit. I abandoned my mother after reading her will. Ayate. Best Drama Family Tales. I left my injured mother alone because she cut me out of her will. Ignoring her scolding messages, I chose my life. I never imagined my life would revolve around managing crises. Growing up, my family seemed ordinary enough. My mother was a vibrant woman, always bustling about with endless energy. My younger brother and I were close, typical siblings with our fair share of rivalry and camaraderie. My father, a steady presence, worked hard to provide for us until his untimely passing when I was in my early 20s. His death left a void, but we managed to hold things together. It wasn't until my mother retired that everything started to unravel. Retirement was supposed to be a golden period for my mother, a time to relax and enjoy the fruits of her lifelong labor. Instead, it marked the beginning of a series of unfortunate events that would drastically alter our family dynamics. My mother, once the pillar of strength, became the most accident and illness-prone person I had ever known. It was almost as if a dark cloud settled over her life the moment she stepped away from her job. Throughout these years, my younger brother was largely absent. He's single, with no kids, and few responsibilities, yet he rarely stepped up. He would visit during his summer vacations, help with superficial tasks like moving furniture or taking her car in for service, and then disappear until it suited him to visit again. In contrast, I'm married with kids in school, a demanding career, and a side gig to keep us financially stable. Despite my full plate, I was the one who had to respond to every emergency. It became an unspoken rule. If something happened to Mom, I was the one who dropped everything to be there. The dynamic between my mother and brother has always been different. She dotes on him, often praising his minimal efforts as if they were grand gestures. When he does something as simple as hanging a picture or fixing a leaky faucet, she showers him with compliments. It's infuriating because in her eyes, he can do no wrong, while my sacrifices go unnoticed or are taken for granted. It's as if I'm invisible, only summoned when there's a crisis. Her dependency on me has only grown over the years. Each time she's been hospitalized or needed extensive care, it's fallen on me to arrange everything. I've had to burn through my paid time off, cash, and savings, and leave my own family to fend for themselves. My kids have had to celebrate milestones without me, and my spouse has had to pick up the slack at home. It's been a relentless cycle of sacrifice and neglect, all while my brother continues his carefree existence. Balancing my family responsibilities with my work and personal life has been a Herculean task. Each day feels like I'm walking a tightrope, trying to keep everything from crashing down. My career, once a source of pride and fulfillment, now feels like a juggling act where one misstep can send everything tumbling. My job requires long hours and a high level of commitment, and while I enjoy the challenges, it leaves little room for anything else. Add to that my side gig, which was initially a passion project but has since become a financial necessity, and you have a recipe for constant stress. At home, my children demand and deserve my attention. They're growing up fast, and every missed milestone feels like a dagger to the heart. I've missed school plays, sports events, and countless family dinners because I had to rush to my mother's side. My spouse has been incredibly supportive, picking up the slack and managing the household in my absence, but it's taken a toll on our relationship. We rarely have time for each other, and when we do, I'm often too exhausted to engage meaningfully. The weight of my mother's needs presses down on me constantly, turning even moments of respite into periods of guilt and worry. My younger brother, on the other hand, seems to live in a different world entirely. He works low-wage jobs, hopping from one to another, without much thought about the future. His carefree lifestyle stands in stark contrast to my own, and it's a constant source of frustration. He only helps when it's convenient for him. Like during his summer vacations, he'll visit my mother, do some superficial tasks like moving furniture or taking her car for service, and then vanish again until his next convenient window. I remember one particularly frustrating incident. It was the middle of winter, and my mother had slipped on ice, breaking her hip. The hospital called me as usual, and I had to drop everything to be there. My brother, who was between jobs at the time, didn't offer to help. He was planning a ski trip with friends and didn't want to cancel. I ended up spending 2 weeks with my mother, arranging for her surgery, managing her post-operative care, and ensuring she had everything she needed for her recovery. My job was understanding, but I had to take unpaid leave, and the financial strain was palpable. Another time, my mother was diagnosed with pneumonia. It was a severe case, and she was hospitalized for several weeks. My brother was working a temporary job at a resort, and when I called to ask if he could come down, he flat out refused, saying he couldn't afford to lose the job. Once again, I was the one who had to step in, coordinate her care, and spend sleepless nights at her bedside. My children had to fend for themselves, and my spouse had to manage the household alone, all while I was hundreds of miles away. There was also the time my mother had a head-on car collision. It was a rainy afternoon, and I was in the middle of an important meeting when the hospital called. My heart sank as I listened to the nurse explain the severity of the accident. I immediately left work, catching the next flight to be with her. My brother, who was living rent-free with a wealthy relative, didn't even bother to visit. He said he had commitments that he couldn't break, but I knew better. He simply didn't want to deal with the inconvenience. Not long after she recovered from the accident, she was diagnosed with cancer twice. The first time was breast cancer. The doctors caught it early, and she underwent surgery and chemotherapy. The treatments took a toll on her both physically and emotionally. I was there for every appointment, every tear-filled night. Just as we thought we were in the clear, she was diagnosed with a different type of cancer a year later. More surgeries, more treatments, and more sleepless nights for both of us. As if the universe wasn't done testing us, she was involved in another car accident, this time getting T-boned at an intersection. The injuries weren't life-threatening, but they compounded her existing health issues, making her even more dependent on me. Each of these emergencies has left scars, not just on my mother, but on me and my family. I've burned through my paid time off, cashed in savings, and missed countless moments with my own children. My spouse has been my rock, but the strain is evident. We rarely have time to connect, and when we do, the looming shadow of my mother's next crisis hangs over us. It's a relentless cycle of sacrifice and neglect, and it's wearing me down. My brother's behavior adds salt to the wound. He'll visit during his summer vacations, taking my mother out for lunch, or doing minor repairs around her house, and she showers him with praise. "Look at how handy he is," she'll say, showing me a picture he hung or a shelf he fixed. It's infuriating. Here I am, sacrificing my time, money, and emotional well-being, and he gets lauded for the bare minimum. My mother's blind spot for his indifference and my resentment grows with each passing day. The passive-aggressive texts from my mother are a constant reminder of the imbalance. "Your brother hung this lovely picture when he was here last summer," she'll text, followed by a photo of a mediocre piece of art. "He took my car in for service. Such a help." It's as if she's trying to rub salt in the wound, reminding me of his occasional, convenient contributions while ignoring my constant, grueling efforts. When I ask if anyone else could step in, the answer is always the same. But you're the one she wants. It's an infuriating mantra that makes me feel both indispensable and undervalued. My brother's ability to shirk responsibility without consequence only amplifies my frustration. I've had to develop a thick skin, learning to navigate the emotional landmines of our family dynamics while trying to maintain my own sanity. The emotional toll is immense. I love my mother dearly, and I want to be there for her, but the constant pressure and lack of appreciation have worn me down. It's not just the physical care, it's the emotional labor of constantly being the one to hold everything together. A few months ago, I stumbled upon a document that would shake me to my core. While cleaning up my mother's office, I accidentally discovered her will. I wasn't snooping. I was trying to organize her cluttered paperwork. My heart stopped when I saw my mother's signature on the document, and I couldn't help but read it. The contents of the will were a gut punch. Except for some small amounts left to my children, she was leaving everything to my brother. The total estate was valued at over $250,000. I was stunned, hurt, perplexed. It felt like a betrayal. After everything I'd done for her, all the sacrifices I made, this was her decision? I was heartbroken and angry. She had promised me so many things over the years, promises that were never fulfilled. Now, it was clear that my brother would inherit everything, despite his complete disregard for her well-being. I confronted my mother about the will, hoping for an explanation. She brushed it off, saying it was her decision and that I had no right to question it. Her words cut deep as she told me I had no one to blame but myself for being a martyr. She made it clear that I was chosen to take care of her out of love, not for material gain. In her eyes, the little things my brother did were enough to secure his place in the will. I was crushed. My mother's actions felt like the final straw. For years, I had sacrificed so much for her, and yet she had chosen my brother over me. The revelation hurt, but it also made me reevaluate my own life. I realized I had been living for everyone else, my mother, my children, my spouse, and neglecting myself. In a moment of anger, I left her. I packed my things, left a note, and walked out. I didn't go to her house, I didn't call, and I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just walked away. My decision was met with a mixture of guilt and relief, but it was something I had to do for my own sanity. Now, I'm left wondering if I made the right choice. Am I the asshole for walking away from my mother after everything she put me through? Or was it a necessary step for my mental and emotional well-being? Please share your thoughts.